YouTube channel near you.
Hey, hello everybody. How you doing? This is Althea and welcome to Spiritual Street Talk with Althea Jacob. Well, I will tell you 10 minutes ago, I wasn't sure I was going to be having a show. So I just happened to check my email and I saw the link came through. As you know, most of you know, Grizz had some medical issues a few weeks back, and he and Mary have been working real hard to do some good healing work and get things going. And I just wasn't sure how long it would be until we'd be able to have our show again. And I would just kind of left it in the hands of the fates, so to speak. And when I checked it about a half hour ago, there was no link. So I said, okay, I'm not going to pressure anybody, because I'm just so filled with gratitude for both Chris and for Mary, for all they do for us. And, right now they're healing up and getting stronger and trying to get things organized. So I didn't want to put any pressure and say, hey, what's happening with the show tonight? I thought, well, if I get the link, I'll do it. So I was just sitting there finishing up a little supper, and then I saw the link come through and I'm like, oh, I'm doing a show today. So forgive the a little less polished look than I normally have with no makeup, no jewelry. This is the real me. And, that's okay. There are times in life when we're just the real us, right? We don't have time to do all the fancy stuff. And I think that's important to know that that's okay. That we do the best we can with what we have. So for those of you who are just joining the show and tuning in for the first time, the format of this show is typically the first few minutes, I share some thoughts about what's been on my mind and heart for the week. And then, or since the last time we did a show. And then after that, what I typically do is I've already said a little prayer, and I chose some cards from Spirit for messages from our guides and angels. And it's really amazing how it works, because it doesn't matter whether you are tuned in live tonight or whether you are tuning in tomorrow, next week, or even next year. When you hear the messages that come through from Spirit on this show, whenever it is that you're watching or listening to it, there's going to be a part of some of these messages that are going to go ding, ding, ding. That one was for me. And so I don't know how or why it works in the magic of the wonderful universe that we have, but it happens all the time. And it's pretty cool, I think. So then after I'm done with those messages, I typically will open up the comment field is on right now. So if there is somebody who has a question or a comment or an area that you want me to focus on, or you have a question or a dialogue that you want to start with the group or who's ever on, all you need to do is put that in caps in the comment, and then I will gladly respond to that and see what it is that I can do to help answer those questions or talk about whatever that topic is. So when I was thinking about my show earlier today, there's actually a couple things that came to mind that have been coming up lately. So one of the issues for me personally over the last few weeks has been some neurological stuff happening where I was getting some numbness and some pain and some lack of mobility in my arms and my hands. Now, as somebody who lives alone and who is a go-getter and responsible for my own fate here, so to speak, as well as taking care of my dog, that was very scary. And when you're dealing, if anybody is dealing with chronic pain, a lot of times it makes it difficult to sleep. And then, you're a little cranky and you're like, well, I like to be an optimistic, positive person. And I caught myself just not being exactly true to that part of myself that I hold up as the standard that I want to have for myself, to be the best possible version of myself that I can be. So when I went to a couple different doctors, and there were some really scary things that it could have been. And when I went to my primary doctor, he said, well, some of the things you're describing with the burning pain, and a lot of it's very nerve related. He said, and it was also on the same side that I had shingles several years ago. He said, you've been under a lot of stress lately. And he said, maybe it's that shingles virus trying to come on out again. And prior to coming out in any of the splotches or patches that are those like old, chicken pox on steroids that a lot of people have, and that I had when I had shingles years ago. He said sometimes they attack the nerves and some of the same areas. And so I just started a medicine yesterday, and I could say even after one night on that medicine, it seemed to be helping a little bit. So fingers crossed on that. But it just got me thinking a couple things. First, when I went to go pick up that medicine, the pharmacy said, oh, it's $200 and it's for 30 pills. It was twice a day for 15 days. No, sorry. That particular one was twice a day for 10 days. And I'm thinking, $200 for 20 pills? That's insane to me, right? And then I also said, but wait a minute, I have insurance. Why am I not just getting charged the copay? And they said, oh, well, because you didn't get a pre-approval. I said, a pre-approval for a drug? This is my doctor called in this drug. And it's like, why would I need a pre-approval when a doctor prescribes a drug? So that's got me thinking, like, this is insane. So then fortunately I have GoodRx, the gold membership. I had got that years ago before I got the current healthcare insurance I have. And they said, oh, let me look that up. Oh, it'll be $13. I was like, okay, this is just wacky. First of all, with insurance, it was going to be $200 because didn't get it cleared ahead of time. And then with this card, it's okay, well, that's fine, all the way down to 13. But it's like, what kind of profits are these companies charging that they can, so that got me thinking a lot about medical stuff. And I saw a commercial for a particular drug that was totally designed to deal with a side effect of a depression drug, the side effects of a depression drug or anti-anxiety drug. So I'm like, wait a minute, let me get this right. So there's this whole new industry of drugs that have come out to deal with the side effects from this anxiety medication. But one of the side effects of this other drug, newer drug, was potentially to cause depression and suicidal thoughts. And I'm like, wait a minute, which means they need to take more of that first drug, which is creating the side effects, meaning they need to take more of the second drug. And I was like, wait, why are we creating drugs to deal with the side effect of other drugs versus trying to find better ways to heal people and address the root cause so they don't need the first drug in the first place? So those are the kind of things that I was thinking about this week. Of this, just how wild and crazy things are. And I happen to have gotten my current health care from the marketplace. And without the help from the marketplace, a basic plan for me as a single woman was over $1,000 a month. And I'm like, and I don't have a bunch of pre-existing conditions or anything. And it wasn't any big fancy plan, as you can tell with them denying my doctor's prescribed drug for me for the nerve pain. So I'm like, what's going on here? It's crazy that high. And according to some of the lawmakers, what's going to happen soon is those prices are going to go up because some of the subsidies are going to be slashed or go away. And so I'm like, how is it that we live in a country, one of the wealthiest in the world, and yet our citizens don't have affordable health care? And how has this not been a priority for so long? And how can these drug companies be so flippin' greedy that instead of helping to promote healing and getting to the causes, they invest their money and their minds into, well, how can we create other drugs that you can get dependent on? And what do we need to do to help with the bad side effects we did there? Well, what's a new drug that'll help with that one? And it was like this vicious cycle. And it just it made me sad, actually, that we've come to this as a society, as a culture. And I've been very blessed to have traveled around the world. And I've been to maybe 30 countries around the world, maybe a little more, and most of the states in the US. And very few of the countries I've been to do not have public health care for all their people, do not have public education available, paid for by the government, and the taxes. And it's like you say, oh, well, your all their tax dollars go to that. Yeah, they do. But some of the European countries, they don't only have their free health care, free education through college, free education, free, once you retire and you get to retirement age, their Social Security is actually something that you can live a good life on, not just have something that you wonder, like, how the heck can I even pay my main bills on with just the little bit we get out of Social Security here. And they also get, I believe most of the countries there get anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks of paid vacation each year. So they have this wonderful quality of life. And now you would think that they pay taxes, 10, 20 times what we pay in order to provide all those benefits to their citizens, but they don't. It's really not a lot more than what we pay. So that kind of gets me back to what's happened to the priorities of our leaders. And why is this on a spiritual channel? Because I think it's a spiritual imperative that we have, that if we truly believe that we are all brothers and sisters, we are all on the same boat here, and we're all trying to become the best possible versions of ourselves. And one of the highest callings of our soul is to be of service to each other and to help each other, right? Because we're all in this together. Then how did we wind up in a society which used to be the shining example, the shining beacon on the hill, right? Everybody looked to America for the freedoms and for the rights and for the being the ones to really speak up for the little guy and protect, the masses, etc. To now, we're no better than any of some of these thug countries where the rulers that are there, take advantage of the citizenry. And there's, the mega rich, what do they call them over? The oligarchs, and the mega wealthy people, and the divide between the uber wealthy and the poor has never been greater than here. And it's sort of like, once you get to a certain number of millions or even $1 billion, it's like, okay, you can live really well off of that, even the interest on that. And your generations have been set for forever, for the rest of your family. When you have that kind of money, it's like, why do you need multiples of billions and, hundreds of billions when there's people that are starving? Why are we building a gold gilded ballroom at the White House when we have people that poor people that they took away the SNAP program for? And so these kind of injustices, when I pray about it and I ask Spirit, like, what is going on here? They said, well, one of the things that happens when we get to the quickening times, when there's going to be shifts in energy and in the spiritual world and in the culture and on the earth, one of the things that happens is this dichotomy of the good get better, the bad get worse. The greedier people get even more greedy. The service-minded people go out there and serve and help even more, right? And so there's this huge gap that's formed. And one of the things I feel so important that I feel I'm meant to do, and I believe that anybody who tunes in to this that's inspired to check in on this channel, it's the whole name of it is Spiritual Street Talk. Why? It's how do we take spirituality and put it into our day-to-day life? How do we make sure that we're not getting so wrapped up in the worldly stuff that we forget about what really matters, which is shining our light, sharing our love, using our gifts to help others, to be of service to others, becoming the best possible version of ourselves. That doesn't mean the wealthiest with the most toys, with the most experiences at the expense of other people. It means what makes you the best version of you, channeling your artistry, your creativity, your kindness, using your gifts to improve the lives of others around you, making sure you and your family are secure and have beautiful lives. But there's a big difference between being secure and being so wealthy that there's no way you or any of your descendants could spend a fraction of what you have, while those other people that you might know are struggling just to make ends meet, or deciding, do I buy food or get this medication? Or they're splitting their pills because they know they need it, but they can't afford the medication at the current prices, right? So it's incumbent on us, when we have a spiritual mindset, when we're trying to think of, hey, we are all one going through this journey together. How can we inspire those that are powerful to use their power and their wealth benevolently to help others, to inspire others, to lift up those that are struggling in any way? And how do we inspire people that are really struggling to better themselves so they can become more resilient and self-sufficient and start to use their gifts to feel joy and a better quality of their life? So these are the kinds of things that go through my mind a lot. Okay, so that's sort of what's been on my mind there. It's also the beginning of the Christmas season. And, I hope everyone had a wonderful and blessed Thanksgiving. I really missed doing the show the last few weeks, so I'm glad to be on tonight. And the plan is to have, to continue through. I probably will not do a show on Christmas Day itself, although you never know. I guess we'll see what happens when we get closer. I may or may not. It really depends if I'm at a friend's house or not for the holiday. But, the holidays can be a challenge, right? There's so many traditions. And on top of already very stressed and busy schedules, we add in I have to do the holiday cards and the baking and the decorating and the shopping and the wrapping and, all of the things that we have as our traditions. Maybe it's caroling. Maybe it's, going to perform in a concert or going to watch beautiful Christmas concerts to get in the spirit and the mood of things, right? So we have all of this going on, and it can be really overwhelming. We can have emotional stuff happening. It's still a hard time of year for me. This is now is it second? Yeah, this will be the second Christmas since I've been divorced. And it's really hard because I remember all the fun and amazing traditions I had with my husband, as well as missing my family of origin, my mom, my dad, my brother, and all of the great traditions we had. They're all on the other side of the veil. They've been there for a while. But I still remember a lot of the great Christmas traditions we had at home and with our families back east. And so it's kind of weird, when you're in a different life position. There's a lot of people out there that are feeling lonely, overwhelmed. And one of the things that we need to do is help to be a source of joy. Give people and yourself permission, like if it's overwhelming and it's not bringing you joy, but it's adding more stress, give yourself permission to do it less, to delegate it, or don't do it. It's like, maybe you don't need to put up every single Christmas decoration that you have in your basement and bring it up and put everything else away. Maybe you just bring up the 3 or 4 favorite ones that bring you the most joy, and you put those someplace where you're going to see them every day, right? Maybe it's too cold now to put out the outside lights. So instead of trying to think like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get out there in sub-zero weather and put out my Christmas lights? Maybe you just put them on the inside around the window so they can still be seen from the outside, but you're being kinder to yourself. So that sort of brainstorming on how can I still do the spiritual things that bring me joy, but don't overwhelm me. And I was just watching before you came up to the office here to do the show. I was watching a cooking show. It was a competition, Tournament of Champions, for their Christmas special. And one of the competitors on the show, as they were talking afterwards, they said, well, stressed is dessert spelled backwards. And I was like, wait a minute. And I'm like, oh my God, that's right. Dessert and stressed are exactly the opposite. And I'm like, well, isn't that interesting that when we're feeling stressed, what do a lot of us want? We want the sweet things. We want those desserts, those comfort foods. So I thought, well, isn't that kind of interesting? I don't know. Those things, they give me a chuckle. So, and like, God and dog are spelled backwards of each other. And I think that dogs are some of the most godlike creatures on the planet, with their love and unconditional love and compassion and loyalty and all that kind of good stuff. So I think, I don't know if there's anything to the stress and the dessert, but I had just heard it. So I thought I'd share it. It gave me a chuckle. All right. So let's dive into what are the messages that we have from Spirit tonight. So I picked 3 oracle cards. The first one that came up is the angel card of innocence. And this says, beloved, everyone is guiltless in truth, and no one can alter God's handiwork of perfection. Give over your feelings of heaviness so we can lighten your load. Give us, your angels, any guilt, anger, or blame that might shroud your loving outlook. Enjoy the peace within your heart once more. Okay, so enjoying the peace within your heart once more. When I was at my doctor's, heard from my doctor, and he was very, very straight with me. And he said, look, Althea, it's really important when you're feeling as stressed as you are, that you control the things you can. So declutter what you can. If there's all these projects that you're feeling guilty that you haven't gotten to, don't have them spread out in every room of the house, so that no matter where you go, there's a reminder of, I'm not good enough. I didn't finish this yet. Oh my God, I still have this to do and that to do and this other thing to do. He said, anything that you can put on hold right now, put it on hold and get it out of sight. So whether there's a spare room, a guest room you can pile it up in, put it in your basement, put it in your garage, put it in a workshop, just get it so that it's not the last thing you see at night and the first thing that you see in the morning. And he said, and if there's things that you can choose not to do and not put that extra pressure on yourself that, oh, I have to get this done, do that. Do those things, or choose not to do those things. Simplify as much as you can so that you have the energy and the reserves and can attack the important things. So in a lot of ways, what he was saying is prioritize. Are those background projects really so important to do right now? No. What's important to do right now? I have confession time. I have a stack of mail, including some bills. I got to get to those. I got to balance my checkbooks and I got to pay those, right? I'm like, I got to get to that. I don't know if I'm going to get to Christmas cards this year, quite honestly. I'm like, okay, I may send out a handful. I don't know. I'm like, in my mind, it's like, I'd like to make Christmas cookies and mail them out to family and friends. Don't think that's going to happen. I might make a few batches and put a few plates together for a few key people, that I just want to share them with locally. And that might be it this year. And you know what? That's okay. In past years, like my gold standard was here, and I would mail out 100 different packages to friends and family all over the country. And I'm like, I'm not up to doing that this year. I'm just not. Between the physical, medical stuff going on for me and just the overwhelm of other projects and things that I have to get done, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Why add that extra pressure? And I think Spirit really wants us to enjoy the beauty of the season. Tonight, as soon as I'm done the show, I'm going over to the Church of the Nativity over in Green Bay for rehearsal for a Christmas concert that I'm singing in on Saturday. And I told the maestro, I said, look, I have my show to do, so I'll be a little late for rehearsal. And I'm not stressing out about that. It's like, I will get there when I get there. And, that's how I go. Oh, welcome. Welcome. We have somebody new. Hi, Rose. And she's here for the first time. So Rose, I've gone through a little bit about what the show is. I'm at the point right now where I'm going through different messages from Spirit. So the first one was about innocence. The next angel card we got is the card of acceptance. And isn't that an important theme to have at this time of year? Acceptance means unconditional love. Our angels remind us to accept everyone exactly as they are without judging them, without blaming them, or without wanting to change them. When we totally accept, when you are totally accepting, you bear no malice or enmity towards anyone or anything. Harmlessness through acceptance is a high state of being. And this is a difficult quality for many of us to embrace, for it is a divine quality. Nevertheless, our angels are drawing it to our attention now. We are also asked to accept ourselves. When we truly do so, we feel centered and confident that the divine, our divine self, is being revealed. So the affirmation here is, I accept myself and others. Well, isn't that also a beautiful thing? Besides that spirit of innocence that I started with, this feeling of acceptance. And going back to, you know what? We do what we can do. We do the best we can. None of us are perfect. And this is an ever quickening, changing, challenging world. And so we just do the best we can. And you know if you've done your best. I know if I've done my best. I know if I'm being a slug or whether I'm kicking it and really getting it, giving it my best shot, or if I'm somewhere in between. And there's some days where I'm feeling good and healthy and strong, and I kick butt and I get a ton done. And then typically, honestly, what'll happen is the next day or two or three, I'm like, what was I thinking? Because I overdid it. So a big lesson for me during this season of my life is about balance and about making sure I'm still taking care of myself as I am going through my day. And then I'm not piling on and doing things that are too much or actually trying to do too much on my own, right? There are things that I can do, and there are things that it's important to ask for help. Oh, and Rose is tuning in from Dublin. Well, that's exciting. Well, welcome. And as most people know who've tuned in, I'm in Wisconsin, and we have our first minus 13 degree wind chill today. It's definitely winter here in Wisconsin, and good time to hunker down. Okay, the next oracle card that I got was the card of past lives. And this says, past life power and wisdom are coming into you. Channel information and imagine you are role-playing the different characters that have the qualities you need. I like this card because whether or not you believe in the concept of past lives or not, it's fun to imagine if I was ever a famous author in another lifetime, I'd love to channel some of those skills to write in this lifetime. Or if I was ever a great scientist in another lifetime, or if I was a really great mom or a really great dad in a different lifetime, let me bring some of that wisdom and those positive traits into how I'm interacting with people now. And so we can imagine pretty much what are the qualities and traits that we would want or need, and try to imagine calling them from a different part of our soul or a different part of our spirit. I then chose 3 tarot cards to represent past, present, and future for us. And the past for us here, and this card is the 8 of Swords. And as you can probably guess, this card is the stalemate card. And it's a person that's surrounded by obstacles and obligations, and they feel overwhelmed. They feel kind of stuck. They're kind of tied there. They don't know which way to go. And for a lot of people going through life, they just feel like I'm stuck in this pattern. I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know where to go. There's all this either contention around me or obligations and commitments. And I just kind of keep my head down and I'm doing this. And meanwhile, their spirit or their soul is craving to try something new, to express more creativity, and to go forward. In the present, the Queen of Cups, this is a huge reminder to all of us, because what happens when a cup is upside down, folks? There we go. What happens when a cup is upside down? Everything runs out. So during this season, it's really important that we nurture ourselves, that we refill our cups before we are so anxious to go fill the cup of other people. How do we go and how do we do that, right? How do we stop feeling so fatigued and overwhelmed? We have to do things that bring us joy, whether that is taking a bubble bath, whether it's resting and recharging our battery, going for a walk in nature, playing with puppies and kittens or babies, or anything that brings us joy, right? Playing music, dancing, singing, being in nature, sitting in a sunbeam and just soaking it all in, going out to dance with friends, being with loved ones, cooking a meal and sharing it with somebody you care about, doing acts of charity, being of service, whatever it is that brings you that sense of joy and helps to refill your cup and recharge your battery. It is essential to be doing that now to get ready for what is coming in the future. And the card that I came up with, the future one, was really interesting based on our first conversation, the earlier conversation. As in the future, the devil is the card that represents the temptations of the physical world and the worldly materialistic side of things, right? And so when we are tapped out and we don't feel ourselves spiritually strong, what happens, that's when we tend to fall more into the patterns and the habits and go after the worldly stuff. And so this spread here is saying, look, I know in the past, and this past could be just the past few weeks and months, right? There's a feeling of overwhelmed, lots of commitment, really not being able to break free and do those things that bring us joy. We feel tapped out and exhausted. Our cup is almost empty. And then it's up to us to turn that around and say, no, I will not give in to the worldliness of this Christmas season in particular. Why? Because Christmas was meant to be a spiritual season. It became very materialistic over the years. And even a lot of the traditions that we do are centered in some worldly materialistic stuff, but getting back to the traditions that are not as materialistic, the ones that are beautiful and help bring our souls that sense of joy, like caroling with our neighbors, right? Or even grabbing a few singers and going to an assisted living facility or old age home and singing for those residents, or in the hospitals for people that are sick there, and doing something to make their day better, or baking cookies and sharing them with the local fire department or the police department that are working really hard during these holiday seasons to keep everybody safe, right? And sharing that with them. So whatever it is that you can do that still has that Christmas spirit and feel to it, and yet brings you joy, that's the kind of thing that'll help to refill your cup and recharge your battery. Okay. And so one, Rose is asking here is about like plans for Christmas. And I know it's different in different countries around the world, and different states, and even different families, within different areas. My Christmas tradition has always been, or has been for a very long time, was to go to church on Christmas Day. And then I would get together with family or friends. If we were exchanging gifts, we would do so. We would share a meal together and play games. And, we'd have a fire going in the fireplace, because I pretty much always lived other than a couple of years in Southern California, I lived in colder climates, Northeast, and now the Northern Midwest, where, it was nice to have a fire going in the fireplace. People would be playing games, watching football, watching different classic movies. So it was always it was always a fun time of family and fellowship and friendship. Um, Way too much eating and drinking typically, but it was always, the good good stuff. So it was always fun. Um, when I was younger, and with my original, my mom and dad and my brother, our family of origin there, we grew up fairly poor. So my dad would always go out on Christmas Eve. And so I'm half Polish. So Christmas Eve was always a meatless dinner. So we'd have pierogies, which are kind of like a Polish dumpling filled with like mashed potatoes and cheese, or prune filling, or sauerkraut, or different kind of cheeses. And we'd have that as our non-meat meal. And then we'd have all kinds of Christmas cookies for dessert. And then once that was done, my dad would go out and get a Christmas tree. If you got your Christmas tree on Christmas Eve, it was either free or half price at any of the lots that sold Christmas trees. And so then he would bring it home and set it up, and we would decorate our tree after dinner. And then we'd hang up our stockings, and then the kids would go to bed, and then the parents would fill up the stockings, and presents would be waiting for us the next morning when we get up under the tree. And that was fun and sweet. So that was some of the older traditions, and they've migrated some. I have an adopted family of mine in Ohio. Was it just last year? I think, yeah, maybe it was just last year. I went and I spent a couple days with them a few weeks before Christmas, and I taught them a whole bunch of recipes, and we baked Christmas cookies, and we made platters for the local fire department and some teachers. And then their tradition had always been, they all get into their pajamas and robes, and they get into the car, and they get hot chocolate, and they go to one of the fast food places and get some French fries, of all things, to go with. That's like salty and sweet goes together with the thermos full of hot chocolate. And then Dad drives the van around up and down the streets to look at all the Christmas lights and decorations that people have put up in their houses and all throughout the community. So I went with them, and we drove and did that all last year, and that was lovely. There's also a tradition I've had when I was married. My husband and I, we would get in the car and we'd go drive around, and we'd see all the Christmas lights. And up here in the Midwest was the first place that I come across it. But there's some people that they are able to synchronize their lights to music that's playing on the radio on certain stations. And so you can find out where they are, and you go there, and like these light displays are like a whole light show. And if you tune your car radio to the same station, and they usually have a sign saying, tune in, 99.1 or whatever the FM station is. And as you're listening to the Christmas Carol playing, their lights are moving in sync with that music. And that was way, way fun. And so that was something that we did as a tradition as well. As I got older, we would open up stockings on Christmas Eve, and then Christmas morning, one present before church, and then the rest after church when we got back, especially if they were young kids, because it was hard to make them wait all that time until it got there. But yeah, so the holidays, yeah, it's lots of different traditions. Rose, if you feel free to put in the chat some of the things you do in Ireland, I'll share them over people can see them on the chat, but I'll also mention them. So if you want to share some of the things that y'all do over there in Ireland for Christmas, that would be fun. I know there's not a lot of people on the live chat today because my show hasn't been live in the last couple of weeks. So I know a lot of the regulars that I interact with or that ask questions aren't on there. So I'm really delighted to have somebody new on finding us tonight. And I do hope that in future weeks, we'll have people tune back in again. I'm also going to be doing in the new year, Grizz and Mary and I are working on a new show that will be a morning show that'll be the complement to this one. So this one is spiritual street talk. So the focus is spirituality, and we try to add in some worldly practical advice in with that spiritual focus. And then the morning show that I'm going to be doing is kind of the inverse of that, where it's going to be much more drawing from my years of experience and counseling as being a life coach for people, and just talking about how to get through the day. And there'll be a little sprinkling of spirituality in that, but it's just going to be much more straight talk of, okay, guys, these are things we need to look at, like how I started the conversation earlier today about the pharmaceuticals. It's like, if you're taking one drug to deal with the side effects for a different drug that you're taking, maybe you need to step back and say, what was the cause of me having to take this first drug? And why don't I work on that and see if I can get myself off of these medications instead of just adding more to the mix, right? Taking a little bit of a creative approach to our own health. I think one of the things that's happened a lot, especially here in America, I know it's not as much overseas because I lived in Europe for a couple of years, but I know we tend to be much more reactive and like let's treat the symptoms and try to make the symptoms go away. That's kind of our first look at things versus, what's the cause of this? And maybe I need to look at that. So for example, for a while, I was having a lot of indigestion issues. And so I would take the Tums, or I would even, the Pepsid and the different, even at Costco, there's like this equivalent of some kind of acid controller you can take. So, you don't get all that stuff afterwards. And after a while, I said, wait a minute. If I have this chronic indigestion, I must not be eating the right foods for my body. And then somebody was telling me about a book called Eat Right for Your Blood Type. And sure enough, I get that book and I look up my blood type and I'm like, oh, more than half of the things I was eating, and they were not bad foods, but it was still foods that, according to Eating Right for Your Blood Type, were not good for my digestion. For my blood type, it was hard to digest. And so I was like, okay, instead of taking Pepto-Bismol or eating Tums or taking these acid controllers, why don't I just eat the foods that don't cause the stomach upset, right? And I see the ads on TV. It's like, oh, eat your pizzas, eat your spicy foods, yeah, and then take your Pepto-Bismol. And it's like, well, maybe not everybody should be eating pizza all the time or spicy foods, right? If it's making yourself so sick that you need to take medicine, maybe we should take that ownership and responsibility back and say, wait, I need to look at the cause of this. Can I really not eat this kind of food? And maybe it's not, you can't eat it ever, but maybe you just shouldn't be eating it, several times a week or several times a day. So anyway, it's like people that are, I have a friend who is lactose intolerant, and he didn't want to give up dairy, right? He didn't want to stop eating cheese. And for a while, he walked around with packets of these little tablets that whenever he was going to have dairy and eat a pizza or eat the cheese, he would have to take this pill. And then it finally got to a point, he said, what am I doing? Do I really need this? And then he found out that it wasn't all cheese. It was just dairy from cows. So if he ate goat cheese or sheep cheese, it didn't have the same effect because it had different enzymes to it. So anyway, my point here is, guys, instead of being a culture spiritually where we look for the Band-Aids, where we look for the how do I treat this symptom to make my symptom go away, we really would benefit from evaluating what is causing this and what can I do to change so I'm no longer contributing to the cause. And now, granted, there's some illnesses and things like your eating behaviors or your day-to-day behaviors have minimal impact on it. But there's many, 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 many conditions that are out there medically that what we eat or drink and our lifestyle absolutely has an impact. And looking at that and making choices about that matter. Okay, so Rose is sharing with us. So she says, so for Christmas, I see my family for Christmas Day, and they like to eat ham and broccoli, carrots and peas, and then fruit salad with cream. They also play cards, and they go for a Christmas walk in the evening, and they also do send a letter too. So that sounds really sweet. That sounds very similar in a lot of ways. And that's the other thing, when you think about spirituality, and especially during this Christmas season, aren't most people down deep very similar? What do we want for our families? We want us to have a home that we feel safe in, warm bed to sleep in at night, good food to eat, family and friends to share those moments with, safety to be able to take a walk or play a game or enjoy the simple pleasures of life together. That's so much what it's about. And you can look at almost every nation around this world of ours, and it's very similar of what we want for ourselves and for our families. And the world would be so much better if we could all just think of that peace and harmony and the love that we share and the energy that we put out there. I know lately there's been an awful lot talking about the interdimensional beings and the UAPs and all of, the different governments around the world all releasing their files on all the encounters that have happened over the last 100 years. And, some of them are redacted and not all of them are let out. But there is this sense of, hey, you know what, guys, we are not alone in the universe. And there's been proof of that now. And there's going to be even more proof in the coming years that becomes public knowledge. And so if we can't, as humanity, come together to love each other, to live in peace and harmony, to see the benefits and the goodness of each other and the similarities of, when it comes down to it, we just want our families to be safe and happy, to have our needs met. What is that? Housing, food, shelter, education, opportunities to use and develop our gifts and our knowledge, our creativity, to have the best experiences possible wherever we live, right? We share that. That is a human trait, right? So if we can't come together as humanity, how in the world would we ever fit in with a universal, be members of a universal community? Because if we're not alone in the universe, if we're one of many civilized, advanced civilizations that are scattered throughout this incredible universe of ours, it's going to be a challenging ride and a hard ask, if somebody from a different place was looking down at our planet, wouldn't they say, geez, these people fight a lot. Wow, these people really abuse their planet. Geez, these people really don't share a sense of harmony and love. And for those of us that we want to change that, we want that to be a positive thing, we can, in our prayers and in our meditations and in our energy, we can send love out from our heart to all of the beings on our planet, to all the people. We can send love out to the universe and say, hey, there are loving beings that want to promote peace, that want that feeling of love and advancement of us all together, that we understand that, we incarnated from spirit into these physical bodies so that we could have these experiences and grow and learn and experience them together. Okay. And Rose is saying that I think all people should give food to the homeless people. Yeah. And definitely, during this time of year, there's quite a few homeless shelters and soup kitchens, and even a lot of churches and other community centers that will open their doors, and they'll gather food to distribute. They'll cook meals and provide the warm shelter and the place for people who need it to come in to partake of it. One other tradition that we used to do, I forgot to share this one, Rose, was we used to, once we got a little bit more financially secure, we would buy small turkeys and creamery sauce and stuffing and green beans and the fixings to make a holiday meal. And we would deliver them anonymously to different families in need in the community. We just kind of sneak up and put it on their doorstep or ring their bell or give it to the pastor to give to that particular family for that community or to the local minister. And there's a lot of people that do that as well. So there's certainly, this is the spirit of giving and the light that is present during this Christmas season. And there's not a mistake that this is a time when there is Hanukkah, which is the season of lights, where there is Kwanzaa, which also has to do with some lights, Christmas, which is the star of Bethlehem and the light coming into the world through Christ and what he does for Christians. This is a time, it used to also be a pagan holiday, of Festivus, where the light, and the stars and the whole change of season. And I apologize to my pagan friends that I'm not as knowledgeable, but I do know that this is also a big celebratory time for a lot of our pagan brothers and sisters. And so this is a time of year where quite a few cultures all come together to share light and love and vibration, coming together and to celebrate whatever we can as humans going through this journey of ours. So think about that, the spirit of Christmas and giving, and whether it's the giving to the Salvation Army bucket, and the people, the bell ringers they call them here, whether there is even the kindness of letting somebody have the parking space that you were going to get, helping a handicapped person, let them have the little scooter, to get them through the store. You're on it because you're tired. They're on it because they have to walk with a cane or a brace or a wheelchair, right? So it's like doing those acts of kindness, which we like to do, especially during the holiday season. Let's try to stretch out that season and do those things more all throughout the year, not just for the few weeks of Advent before Christmas or around those holidays, right? What if we tried to hold on to that Christmas spirit, this holiday spirit, all through the year, so that when we look at a brother and sister, we don't judge them, we love them. We ask ourselves, what can I do to bring joy to them, to add peace and harmony into their life and into their world? How can I use my gifts and share my toys so that maybe they can play and have some too, right? So I really would like to end today's show with that challenge. Oh, hold on. I have another comment here from Rose, and she says she lives in Dublin and there's a bird. Oh, bird flu. Oh, and no one's eating turkey. Oh, no. Okay, sorry to hear that. Well, our substitute here on the holidays, sometimes people do quail or duck or goose, or if you don't want any of the bird stuff, you can do ham. Some my Italian friends make lasagna for Christmas, so whatever you can do that brings you a little bit of joy and keeps everybody safe. And again, it's not so much about the food as it is the preparing the food together and the sharing of the food together, rather than what the actual content of the meal is, right? There's lots of traditions, but if traditions have to change, we adapt, right? We're resilient. What's the point? The point is being with those that you love and sharing those healthy and some of the not so healthy treats that we have during the holidays. So as I'm winding up this episode, what I'd like to really encourage everybody to do during this season, first and foremost, is be unconditionally loving and kind to yourself. Recharge your batteries, refuel yourself with the things that bring you love and joy. Take things off of your plate, those to-do lists of things that are just overwhelming you. Take a true step back and be objective and try to figure out, what can I put on hold for now? If you're feeling overwhelmed, be proactive and say, you know what? I really don't have to do this and this and this. Here's my priority list. Here's the absolute things I have to do. Here's the things I can do. Let me ask for some help. Let me delegate. Do the things that we can do to make it better and easier. Then once we have our lives feeling a little more balanced and we're feeling our cup a little fuller, share your cup with others, right? Shine your light, share your love, share your gifts, become the best possible version of yourself, and be out there in the world sharing kindness, making positive impacts on the lives of others. You might not have the money to buy people gifts, don't have the time to bake them the cookies and do other homespunny things, but you can share a kind word. You can help to ease a burden. You can bring joy into their lives and leave and make a positive impact on the people that you meet along the way. And so if you keep that in mind, it'll help us, everybody, get through the holiday season with more grace, with more playfulness, with more joy, and with love. I thank you all for joining me for this episode. I'm Althea, and this has been Spiritual Street Talk with Althea. If you don't tune in again before Christmas, I wish you all a blessed, wonderful Christmas. I hope to be back next week, next Thursday, which is going to be the 11th of December. Please do tell your friends, tune in, 7:00 p.m. Eastern time in the U.S. Thank you so much for my European friends for tuning in. It must be really late at night, but God bless you for tuning in. Have a wonderful week, y'all. I love you. Take care and go out there and do good things in the world. Bye now.
To a YouTube channel near